Hi, 3DMJers. This is Andrea Valdez, and you are listening to the 3D Muscle Journey podcast. Before we dive in today, I just wanted to remind you guys that we have recently created a video library of educational materials at 3dmjvault.com. The Vault is a place we can organize our best information, pair it with some of our favorite resources, and share it with all of you in one online database. A lot of it is free. Some of it is for purchase to help support this podcast, and we'll continue adding pieces of updated content to it every few weeks for the rest of the year. Once again, that's 3dmjvault.com, and we really hope you like it. Today I'm talking to Jeff Alberts and Alberto Nunez about their current contest preps as professional natural bodybuilders attempting to be the best in the world. As many of you already know, both of these gentlemen have been lifting weights for decades and competing at the top of the sport for many, many years. While you can catch glimpses of their contest prep protocols on both our YouTube channel and their individual Instagram accounts, in this podcast we decided to go over everything they've done back and forth throughout the course of 90 minutes. You'll hear about how they picked a show, planned their season, adjusted their nutrition, shifted their weight training, and tracked their cardio leading up to their first stage appearances that are coming up here in the next few weeks of 2017. It's basically a back and forth conversation so you guys can kind of compare, contrast, and get some insight from two of the most experienced athletes and coaches in the game and how they're handling themselves at this stage in their careers. So as always, if you have any feedback for us, leave it at 3dmusclejourney.com under episode 60. Let's get into it. Here are two professional natural bodybuilding preps with Jeff Alberts and Alberto Nunez. As we're talking right now, August 17th, Berto, when's your first show you're about to do this season?
Shoot, the 17th of next month. So
4 weeks
September
out.
17th.
Ish.
4 and like 2 days.
Okay.
I can do a lot in 2 days, so we'll leave those in there.
Okay.
For better or for worse, I can. So yeah.
Okay. And then November.
All the way until November, and I'm just going to look at shows in between both shows, and whatever. I'm like basing it off like what is cheap, but I want to do a few shows in between. So I just look at flights like probably the Thursday before. All right, let's do this one, and kind of play it that way. But yeah.
How many do you want to do?
It just can't be 2. If it's 3, I would be okay with that.
Okay.
But not 2. Yeah. 2 is like, why did you, like, you could have done something else with your life.
Don't say that. We have lots of athletes that do 1 or 2. Don't say that. For you mean. For you. For me.
Okay. Yeah, for me. Yeah. Because this will be the last time for a while, I think. So.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a sec. Jeff, if you compete, what weekend this year?
Well, 2 weeks and 2 days will be guest posing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you get on stage in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Why do you say that?
Because I'm not going to look the way I want to look.
Okay.
But it's a guest posing, so I just make sure I do well with the posing, which I know I can. So that'll be the priority more so than trying to like force my body to do something that it's probably not going to do in 2 weeks' time. But as far as getting on stage competitively, it's still up in the air. Like I'm still trying to figure out. It's like Berto said, the logistics, the finances, what's the cheapest route? Because it's not cheap competing on the pro level. You know, when you got to figure the travel, hotel, plane, car rides, food, etc. I mean, that stuff adds up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Each trip, well, at least 1,000 and upwards of 2,000, depending on where you have to travel to. So I think by mid-September, I'll know more along the lines of where I'm going to go.
Okay.
The route.
And it would be end of October or at the earliest? So you're like 8 or more weeks out from competing if you were going to? Are you clicking?
Yeah, I'm clicking because it's...
He needs to look it up.
Yeah, it's like there's a couple of routes. So because of the different federations. So if I go the WNBF route, probably where I'd have to qualify because I'd have to qualify for Worlds and you have to do a show ahead of time. So that would probably be Canada. And that's on October 21st. So we're 9 weeks away from that.
Okay.
I
think
right now.
Go ahead. Right now what?
I would say right now I'm about 7 or 8 pounds off of like where I need to be. So that's a decent, I can make that timeline work. The only reason I say Canada, California to Canada is actually cheaper than going somewhere else in the
Where was
States.
the other? It was like it was East Coast something, right?
Yeah, so WBF, there's one at East Coast. I think it's Connecticut. So the flight's far cheaper than to Canada than it is to Connecticut.
Yeah, because you're NorCal.
Then if I go the IPE route, so if I go IPE Worlds, then the show I'd probably have to qualify would be the Minnesota show in the end of October. And again, the flight's cheaper to Canada than it is to Minnesota. So that's where I'm kind of leaning on. So like if someone like put a gun to my head, hey, you got to decide right now, I'd probably say, okay, I'm going to Canada and then Boston.
Okay.
But the issue with the WNBF Worlds in Boston is it's expensive because I did it 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, Berto remembers how much that trip was. It was the hotels were, expensive. The flights are expensive. So that's another thing. So it might even be cheaper for me to go to Minnesota and then to IPE Worlds, which is, where's that in Kansas? Is it, Berto?
Yeah, it's in Kansas, which is one of the reasons I'm doing it.
Which is close to Bert.
Cheap there.
So those two flights might be actually cheaper than the flight to Canada and Boston. So I literally need to sit down again at the computer and try to figure this all out because I have to think about my family and all that and what I can actually afford and what makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of things y'all talked about that the average, not that everyone's average, but that unless you are in your position, like, to think about. If you're an amateur competitor, the number of shows you have to pick from is huge. You can almost always, I'm sure there's people that are going to be like, nah. But like I would say 90% of the people listening to this podcast in America could probably find some place within a couple hours where they live, so easily within driving distance for a day. Somewhere between June and October, right? There's probably at least 2 or 3 things you have to pick from. Entry fees are much lower. You probably don't have to fly. You probably don't have to stay overnight. And if you miss one deadline you want, you just push it back because there's something else almost all the time, right? But you guys, it's like, and not just you, but any top-level pro or pro athlete in general, you have to worry about qualifying, and you have to worry about, there aren't that many qualifiers that are late in the season that'll get you ready in time for your worlds or your top-level competition. So, yeah, there's a lot to consider for you guys. Berto, can you give us a rundown of how you started this particular prep for you? And then we'll do Jeff, too. We'll just keep going back and forth. Logistics aside and knowing, okay, I picked my shows. What was the game plan this time? I guess when would you even consider that your prep started? Because you have the waves pretty good in and out of season.
Let's see. So for sure, as it turned into 2017, I was like, okay, it looks very likely. And it was supposed to be a very good year to compete in natural bodybuilding.
What do you mean?
I think the OCB and the OCB, that's the amateur affiliate, and then, which was a huge part of the IFPA, it had dissolved according to
some people.
According to some people, right? And which meant the WNBF was going to grow. And it's like, oh wow, well, so I guess that's IFPA is gone. That was probably, I'd say, the second best federation out there, which left, I guess, the WNBF inheriting the OCB, and now the WNBF was supposed to be huge. And I'm like, wow, I guess I picked a good year. And then all of a sudden, someone took it back. I have no clue. Can't keep track of that, to be honest. I just want to compete.
Yeah.
And then the OCB became its own thing, so it's now a pro federation too. And then the IPE was born, and it all of a sudden it went from a really good year to compete to a very confusing year, to be honest.
Yeah.
And this was happening, I think, early in 2017. But I did know that I was going to compete in the fall, and that the route that I had picked when previously to all this, I was going to stick to, and I was going to go through KC And then through Casey, I thought I was going to do the Yorton Cup or something. Oh, I think Casey might have been WBF. I don't know. But anyhow, I kind of knew which shows run every year. I was going to go for those, and they were all going to be fall shows because in the fall is when natural bodybuilding at the pro level gets super competitive.
Right.
A lot of the earlier shows are more, I feel like they're for the new pros that really have no interest in going all the way until November, where shit gets really crazy. So yeah, I think come 2007, once it turned into 2017, I'm like, yes, I think I'll compete. But this is kind of weird because I'm not starting my diet in January. I'm starting it somewhere in the middle of the year, which was totally weird and different because it seemed like everyone else was jumping off but me. But yeah, that's when we decided to compete somewhere around the beginning of this year. It's just been a little confusing to pick where to compete. And how to compete in a way where because a lot of the people who do run these federations, I do consider them friends.
Right.
How do I do it without getting people mad? But at a certain point, it's just you just kind of have to take care of your needs because they're sorting out their stuff and they're not asking you as to how would you like it, Bert, right? So
yeah, that's something we didn't talk about though, that y'all have that extra special consideration because you're coaches in the industry that a lot of the promoters respect and would be honored to have you there, and you don't want to make anyone upset, like you said. Okay. So why were you able to not begin your prep in January, or why did you choose not to start dieting in January, or what you would consider dieting?
Yeah, I didn't want to run out of gas. Basically, that was the big one. I go back to, I think 2011, Jeff competed as well on that year. I had a monster season in regards to getting in shape sometime in early June and running around like that until basically November. And we were still reverse dieting at the time too. So I'm pretty sure that by January I might have been 5 pounds over or something. So yeah, it was a very skinny year that year. And I don't want to, I wanted to pace myself. That's just the older person now, right? The older athlete knowing that, there's only so much time you can spend, not just physically peaked, but mentally peaked. And let's consolidate all of that to this segment of the year where stuff gets really, really crazy.
Okay, that's a really good segue into Jess, because when you said, I want to pace myself this year as an older athlete, and to that, what that meant for you was starting your diet later and being very aggressive and having it be very fast so that you just dip down and you'll come back up quicker, right? Now, pacing for Jeff means something super different.
It's opposite, almost.
We'll talk about that. Okay, so when did you decide, Jeff, that you were going to give this year a go, and how did you strategize that in your own brain?
It was June of 2016 when I actually knew that, okay, 2017, I'm going to try to get my way back to the Worlds. And actually the goal was to get to both World Championships. At the time, I think it was IFPA and WMBF. Now it's the IPE. But I was like, okay, I want to do both.
Yeah.
And see how I can stack. Because my thing is I want to stand next to the best of the best. And that's where you're going to find it at those two shows.
Right.
So that was the goal. So I started in June just because my body, as far as losing body fat, it's a slow process.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, that, and I just wanted to, when I first started, I was like, okay, let me diet for a month, go maintenance for a month. In a sense, lose a couple pounds each month, once, for the first month, then for the next month, just chill at that body weight, and then just rinse and repeat that. And that went well up until probably the end of the year. And then that's when the holidays came and all that. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to relax a little bit. And during the holidays, I basically kept the same body weight. Maybe I've gone up maybe a few pounds, nothing crazy. But that's when the promoter of the Minnesota Mayhem, he reached out and said, hey, my show is going to be really big this year. We're really trying to, make it grow. Mm-hmm. And, Marshall Johnson won it last year. And I was like, just looking at the way it was promoted, the prize money, he just basically treated his athletes like pro athletes. I'm like, that's the show I want to do.
Right.
So I committed to it, and Berto actually committed to it early on too. Mm-hmm. In the beginning. So I was like, okay, my path's going to be October. It's going to be Minnesota, and then from there, just two worlds. So, that was, and then eventually that Pro Division got canceled, and this was just recent. So,
yeah,
kind of through, but I was a little bit more chill with this prep than I have in the past. Like, weekends a little more relaxed, more date nights with my wife, more family things. So it was like a little more social, ate a little bit more food here and there. So I was like a little more chill and relaxed. And then until probably I would say in June, that's when I had to really kind of pick things up in order to kind of like, okay, I need to get on it because here, October's rolling around and I need to make sure I hit up at least one show in October to qualify for November.
Okay. Cool. And then the guest posing just came up recently, right? That's
probably been planned for a little while.
Right. But you didn't.
But it wasn't something I wasn't going to change my plans for a guest posing.
Yeah.
And I will admit, probably like 4 weeks ago, I'm like, I think I'm going to not do this because I don't want to get up there and embarrass myself. But like, nah, don't be a pussy. Suck it up and get in there and start, okay, cut things out, start really tightening things down. And since I did that and picked up some activity level outside the gym, that the weight's coming off and things are starting to start rolling. And you know how it is. Once you start gaining momentum, you get more motivated. So, getting up at 5 to do cardio, it's no longer a chore. You're like, you want to do it.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing the progress. So just a little bit of some behavior shifts, mindset shifts, and yeah, we're flowing now.
Yeah. Okay. Berto, let's go. Okay, so that was things you have to consider when beginning a season as a pro, then kind of laying out an outline for yourself, an estimated outline, right? Which, as we pretty much already discussed, things can change. We've got to be a little flexible. Got that. But as far as the setup of your training, let's go with both y'all on that. So, Bert, what were you doing the beginning of the year, and then how has that changed throughout the course of the last, 4 months you've been dieting? 3 months, 4 months, something like that?
Let's see. So, beginning of the year, pre-prep, I was actually running a full body type split. And I was doing very well with that. Biggest priority during the off season was to bring up my back. My back was the thing I really wanted to remodel. But come to find out, it worked. Well, it worked really well. But I guess for me, the one issue is especially for my arms, if I don't pay attention to them, they will kind of look very powerlifty, like very quickly.
That's very nice,
that's kind
Berto.
That's
some powerlifters have great arms. Don't make them
some
feel
of them,
bad.
but few. I'm just gonna be honest.
That's why I don't powerlift, man.
Okay,
go ahead.
I recall starting a season just I think pretty neutral about things. Like I think I made the progress that I wanted to make. You really can't tell until you're a bit closer to the stage weight. Yeah. And then as I started to take off a few layers, I'm like, my arms don't look right. And I think it's just because I was dedicating so much time to, all things torso. So I took a month off to regenerate the arms and shoulders. And it was quite strange how quickly they did come back. And I ran an upper-lower split simply because from that point on, like once I was a month into the prep, so I can, have more energy by the time I got to like my smaller muscle groups, because I think that was the issue I was running into with that one, with the full body split. And I ended up, like you said, it can be very dynamic. I ended up taking a full month off dieting and just ate enough to, get those things
just
back.
Foods and curls. And then, that's it.
Yeah, foods and curls. Yeah, there's nothing starts with a C that I can think of. Crab enchiladas and curls. That's a horrible T-shirt. So
maybe cookies. I don't know.
Cookies. There you go. Cookies and curls. That'll sell. So we took a month off. Try to bring back the arms. It actually worked pretty well. And I'd say that at this point, Yeah, I'm sticking with that sort of training the whole way through. An upper lower split. It's very similar to what I was running, which it was a split that had me deloading about every 4 to 5 weeks. Front load volume intensity picks up. Hopefully gets stronger at this point, just kind of maintain. And let's see. And yeah, at the end, I was very pleased with like looking back now. I mean, I lost my shit for a minute, and I was telling Jeff like, I don't think I want to compete. Not if I'm going to look like this. And I remember talking to both him and my buddy Brian over here separately, yeah, to see if they kind of came to similar conclusions, and they did. So that made me feel very, very confident. And especially when Jeff says something. When Jeff says something, it's like, okay, like you've seen most everything at this point. So,
what was that conclusion?
That I'll just take a month off, eat, go back to a split that helps me with my arms a bit more, with like my situation there.
A month off for him, like away from like dieting, it's not a big deal because he's so efficient with fat loss. Yeah. So I kind of knew it's like once he threw a little bit more food at him and he just trained, it's going to come right back.
Yeah.
It was probably less than a month, would you say?
Yeah. Ended up being like 3 weeks and some change of just eating and curling, cookies and curling. But yeah, no, at the end, I like, besides that little moment, I looked back at my off season, and it was actually very, very productive, like across the board. Very productive, actually. Mm-hmm. And it's quite strange because I'm lighter than I've ever been at this body weight, not as lean as I've ever been at this body weight. Like I've been leaner, I feel, but I look way bigger. So it's like really freaking strange. And I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of the refeeding structure that I have been using this season. And I think what it's been doing, it's been counteracting a lot of the water retention that perhaps was there all along throughout the years. I just, you really, like if I get watery, you really can't tell, except for that one time I took ibuprofen and guest posed with Jeff, and I found out I had a mild allergic reaction to ibuprofen. That time I swallowed, but yeah, no, it's been dynamic. We've had to like reroute things once, and without straying too much away from the original question, I think the biggest difference has just been pit stops along the way, like taking diet deloads, taking diet breaks, multi-day refeeds. It's made the prep that much more efficient in some ways.
Right, and we'll talk about nutrition in a bit, but training-wise, you feel like that's kind of the big wrench you had was bringing your arms up. You took the month, and since then you've just kind of maintained a very arm-heavy volume shift.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll keep
Yeah, definitely. It was just more so about being able to just have the mental focus and energy by the time, and especially come prep time, because whatever you can handle in the off season, just purely from a focus standpoint, that kind of downgrades as the prep goes on. So
yeah,
I was looking at it from that angle as well, and we've been doing an upper lower split, and I've been loving it thus far.
You train 4 days a week right now? What do you?
I train about 5 days per week. Yeah.
What do you mean?
One is kind of optional based on how I'm feeling.
Okay.
Yeah. If I would just toss that over to the next week if I'm not feeling it.
Okay. Cool. Jeffrey, in terms of training, so we're about 14 months since you decided I'm going to do this season. How has your training, how did it start? How has it changed since? Are there any like notable reasons why you changed it?
I really haven't changed this. The structure of the split is basically the same. It's been the same for like 7-8 years now, just upper lowers.
Yeah.
But it changes, like the workouts do change. So like, when I was pretty healthy, I was able to squat twice per week. I was able to deadlift once per week. I was able to press, like benching and things like that, twice per week. But, it's just kind of unpredictable how my body's been holding up, I would say. It's pretty been the least predictable out of my whole career. It's just, I just never know when I'm going to feel good, not feel good. And so when I start to get a little bit beat up, then I just simply shift things around. So instead of like doing, pressing twice per week, I'll say, okay, I'm only going to press once per week. Maybe do a pec deck instead for chest on the other day. So things like that, just trying to auto-regulate is basically probably the best word I can describe how my training's been over the last year to year and a half at this point. Like right now in the moment, I'm feeling like really good. And the reason, like, because I've been having hip issues, lower back issues, nothing now. And that's just because I threw deadlifts out. I'm only back squatting once per week, front squatting the other session, and shifted my cardio away from walking to the recumbent bike. So I think it's just allowing, there's not that much repetitive use. I think it's helped out a lot. Okay. But what's interesting though, I think because like Berto said, you don't really see improvements until you kind of start leaning down.
Yeah.
And I was like questioning it, can I actually improve at this age? I'm like from 38 to 43, yeah, I was still decently young, but 43 to 46, a lot of aches and pains, getting harder to train, can I actually improve? I think I have like a couple of body parts, like my shoulders for sure. I'm like, okay, that is pretty clear and evident. Mm-hmm. And I do think my back's a little bit thicker than it used to be still. I would say legs, not so much, just because I haven't been able to train my legs the way I would like to, just because of all the injuries. But it's like, wow, okay, from 43 to 46, I can still improve.
Good to know.
In the off season. And I think also too, like Berto was talking about, like the way I've dieted down, it's been super slow. Like it's been so slow since June of last year, going from 203 now to 179, 178. It's been so slow. More refeeds, just a little more relaxed on the diet, not pressing as much. I think it's helped to keep that fullness, because I've been able to, when I am training healthy, performance is definitely there. It's not like I'm like seeing my lifts go down at all.
Okay.
Like squats, yeah, I'm not really improving squats. It's kind of just like teetering. It's like I'm just, hitting kind of the same numbers, but it's not going down. I'm not regressing in any lift.
While your body weight's decreasing.
Yes, I think that's pretty pivotal and pretty key. Especially as an older athlete, you can't expect to have like these big monster off-season gains. It's going to be like, how well are you going to be able to retain that? Yeah. So I think a combination of I think I did do enough in the off-season to improve my shoulders and improve my back. So I did put more volume on my back more than anything. My shoulders, was funny is I only trained shoulders directly once per week with one movement. But that movement has gone up a lot. Like a lot. So I was working with loads like 2 to 3 years ago, working with like 55 to 60 pound on my one arm dumbbell presses. Mm-hmm. Now it's regularly like I'm hitting 70s, 75s every single workout just about. So It doesn't seem like a lot. You go, okay, 50 to 60 to 70, 75.
Percentage wise, it's big.
Percentage, it's huge. But when you're talking, 2 to 3 years of that pounding, it's going to make a difference.
For sure.
So I was like, cool, okay. 46 to 50. Let's see what we can do.
Hey, you're not retiring. That's exciting. Jeff threatens that often, y'all.
Yeah, a lot of auto-regulation, though. It's just because of the aches and pains.
Okay. When you feel good, Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's funny because like with Jeff, like I'm kind of overly critical of like his progress as well. Like I want to see Jeff progress, and it's like that. Like every single time I'm like, fuck, did he make progress? Like, I don't think he did. And every single year, like he pulls something out of his butt. And I'm like, well, yeah, no, he fucking made progress. And remember that I had this conversation with you when he was photo shooting with Wells. Jeff was like super flat on that day. My season was over. Jeff was still going. And I remember I'm like, fuck, I think he took, he's still a world-class bodybuilder, but I think he took a step back this off season because the injury and just like the dad life, right? But no, he came back bigger and better than ever, and I think the same thing's going to happen this year.
That's awesome.
I remember that. It was the first photo shoot. No, it was the second photo shoot. Brandon did at the gym. It was right before the Pro International, the weekend before, and it was on my sixth low day. So what sucks is every time I've gotten a photo shoot with Brandon, it's always the sixth low day in a row. Like the week before Worlds is like the 6th low day. So those photos, as good as great as they are, they're like I was flat as shit. So this year we're getting one when I'm full. We're getting something.
You'll be here. Yeah, you guys are gonna look really good when y'all come.
Yeah.
Just for the listeners, the guys are coming in November, August, September, a little over 3 months.
But yeah, it's just like I was super happy like this week because like I realized like after seeing some of the videos I've been taking of my posing practice, I'm like, okay, you can definitely still make progress in your mid 40s. And I think Craig Toth is another athlete that Berto coaches. Mm-hmm. That dude, he's done what, 100 shows?
Yeah. Literally, it's not a figure of speech. Like he's done 100
literally,
shows.
Yeah.
He's got the same about 30 years of training like me. Mm-hmm. And he made some huge strides. So I think, you know, it just goes to show that, you know, there's so much life left with a lot of people out there.
Yeah. I don't know anyone personally though, now that I think about it. I was gonna say I can't think of anyone that's like, maybe you guys can. Is there someone that's like a pro right now or in the recent past where at some point you can markedly say like, they kept getting better and better till they were 60, and then by the time they got 65, it was like, okay, now I see a cap in them. Or do they just stop competing?
Oh, I have seen it. No, I have seen it. I've seen guys backslide at a certain point.
Okay. Do you think it's because they compete every freaking year, or because they actually hit their genetic like top?
I think then priorities probably change for them. Like when I look at all, they're almost like no longer the bodybuilder, and you see the way they're training. It's like, well, you're doing like a circuit with burpees. That might not be.
So they're just like going through the motions, you think, rather than when their heart was in it. Okay.
Like
they're just wanting to be healthy now.
Yeah.
I think I can say like for myself personally, now that I'm mid 40s, that I think the thing that's probably going to do me in. Not the drive, like, because my lifestyle right now, like, you know, my wife knows I'm a bodybuilder. I mean, I'm a coach, so it's like, it's just it's normal life. So, like, that's not going to get in the way. Like, the thing that's probably going to end up doing me in is just the recovery aspect. Like, my joints and things are going to eventually going to be like, no, okay, you can't do this pounding anymore.
Okay.
Because I've seen signs of that. So, it's like, okay, I could probably see that. That's what's probably going to do me in. So, that's what's going to hinder the progress. So that's why I'm going to stop getting better, just because I can't keep training the way I've been training.
Like
it's going to slow down eventually. Yeah. So no matter how good the nutrition is or whatever, your body's just not going to, it's going to start slowing down.
Yeah.
It's just the question is when. So it's like now I'm like really thinking about my training, trying to be really smart about it and not do anything dumb. And like right now, it's like I know there's a fear of like my legs aren't going to look right because I haven't been really deadlifting and squatting like I was prior. So, but I'm at the same time, like I'm not going to force it if it's not there, because then it might risk, you know, my longevity. And I do want to keep going into my 50s. I do want to be Marshall Johnson and be 55, 56, still, you know, whipping 30-year-old asses.
Yeah, but that is common though, or at least from my decently fresh eye. The same top level pros compete almost every year, if not every other. Is like the farthest spread. Mm-hmm. It's pretty common, right? I'm not just making that up.
Very. Okay. No, it's very common. Yeah.
So it always makes me also wonder, like, well, what if they took some time off? Would they come back better? So I don't know. I'm happy to work with y'all, though, so we can watch it together. Watch you guys. Jeff, I think you got, like, at least 10 years left.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. Okay, before nutrition, because you brought it up, and I totally forgot that freaking matters. Bert, how's your cardio this year? And then we'll do Jeff. Talk to me about cardio. How did it start?
One last thing on training, just because it's I think it's going to be helpful to people, and it's just not going to be us here talking about us.
I want to talk about it.
Well, this is actually going to be, it's going to ring, especially in some like young dudes here out there who's probably doing way too much. And this came to mind from like, you know, Jeff's like, hey, think about your future, right? Like this is the longer you can sustain, it's like like it's the old cliche, it's a marathon. Like, don't die out on mile 12, right? Because like you can go for quite a while with this sport. But one thing that I think prep does to your training is that you become a whole lot more transparent in regards to how you handle and cope with stress. And like we'll see, you'll see this with like your everyday life. You're like, I yelled at my dog for like no fucking reason, really. Like, right? So you're like, that's kind of always there. It's just like I'm extra this today because I don't have food, right? And the same thing kind of goes with training. Is that it becomes a lot more clear, like how much you actually can handle, how much you do need to get the desired effect from your training when you are dieting. And that's one thing that I have noticed this year is that, yeah, when I'm eating enough, like I can eat to the point where I mask the fact that maybe I'm getting to the point where the line's not only flat, but I'm getting a little bit of a negative adaptation now, and I'm slowing down progress. But I don't necessarily feel it as clearly as like right now where, like 4 sets in, I'm like, yeah, I can tell you that I've done 4 sets during this training session. Like everything is, your body talks to you a lot more clearly at that point.
Yeah.
So that's I guess the point I'm trying to make with that is that when you do prep, like the amount of workload that you can handle prior to getting to that little like really messed up part at the end, that is probably something you should consider going into your off season. Is like maybe you should try something similar to this or around this amount, because more often than not, like I'll get a young guy that's done this much volume during his off season. Like we cut it down drastically, and they almost swear that they put on muscle at during certain stages of their prep, and that's just because I think they're doing way too much. So,
I think that's a good point because I'm guilty of this prep, and I've been trained for 31 years. You would think, well, I'm conservative. I was actually too aggressive.
Yeah.
And what was I was doing too much, and basically what was driving that was fear and insecurity, because I was fearing like, oh shit, my off season wasn't that great as far as my lower body training. My loads like the off season prior, like to 2014, I was squatting like 425 on the regular, like 2, 3, 4 reps regular. Mm-hmm. And then with this off season, it's like hit or miss if I'm squatting well or not. And when I was squatting well, it was like more like 350, 340. Mm-hmm. So my fear was like, okay, I didn't progress, maybe even backslid on my lower body. So during this prep, I can't recall what stage it was, but it was just like I was trying to do too much to make up ground because that fear was driving me. Okay, I need to do more. But like Berto was saying, that nutrition just isn't there to support all that. And that's what's probably exasperating these little aches and pains, was like I was just doing too much and the nutrition's there to not support it, and it's just making things worse. Yeah. So I just said, you know what? I need to go back to the drawing board and go, what got me here in the first place? And it wasn't a shit ton of volume. It was just, okay, let's keep it moderate and let's make sure it's quality training, good reps, good clean reps, good form. And, make sure that I'm not taxing myself every single workout where I'm digging a bigger and bigger hole.
Yeah.
And once I started doing that, like probably the last couple of months, training's been like really good because I've been really like keeping the tone of my volume like pretty much capped at a certain level.
Yeah. And that's good to hear because like I said, you start on paper pretty conservative compared to like a 25-year-old who just discovered weightlifting and goes like batshit crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm glad y'all brought that up. Anything else before we move on?
No. We'll get into the cardio, which there's not much to say other than I'm actually doing it this year. Last prep, I think part of it was just me being stubborn and wanting to prove to myself that I could do it without cardio.
You did 0 last time?
I did either
you were walking, I thought.
sessions. 4, 6, or 8 sessions I did during the month of June. Yeah.
Wait. Oh, total.
Total, yeah.
I'm like, per week, per month?
The week? Okay. No, that's total. Well,
I did it for a month, yeah. And I was so focused on my, because I was also powerlifting at the time. So I wanted to save recovery for that. So like training was hogging everything up. And I was still being a bodybuilder, so like I would mind all my accessories or secondary movements, even though I was focused on maintaining strength, I guess you could say. So yeah, this year we're doing cardio, and it's I think a little bit more efficient for sure. I can see how it pushes things right along. And I think the biggest thing for me is that it just brings down stress levels, which are like super sensitive when you are dieting. So going outside, going out for a walk, unplugging, it's just the one thing in my day because my training, it does help me cope with stress. It's like one of the things that I enjoy doing, and it's still my favorite part of my day. But still, there's like some cutthroatiness to it now, where like my cardio, just put on a podcast, go disappear, come back in 45 minutes, and I feel like a ton better. So I've been doing the cardio, and it's actually been like really, really fun. And what I've been using is step counts. So I just try to average 10,000 steps a day, and that is pretty much it. So if I'm
That's
averaging
new.
like 13,
That's new.
It's
For you.
new.
Yeah.
But what I feel it does is it just makes you more neat aware in a time where you wouldn't be, you know. It's like, so like for example, I was like out there in the yard prior to this podcast, just going ham on the lawn. So yeah, that's probably been the biggest difference, honestly, when I look at this prep, is just the fact that I went from no cardio to like, let's do some cardio.
Okay. Do you track on your phone? Do you have Fitbit? What do you got?
Yeah. The phone has a pedometer, and it's actually fairly accurate, which it should be. I mean, this is all it's doing, right? It's like, well, yeah.
Okay.
So we've been using a pedometer and 10,000 steps. So if I get to
That's
like
a lot. I mean, for someone who works at their desk,
it is a lot.
Yeah.
But I found out that it was kind of appropriate because like here's I guess like one of the reasons that I just swallow up a lot of food. Come to find out in the off season, when I'm eating enough, I get about 7,000 steps at the end of the day somehow. Anyways.
If I don't have running in my program, I don't usually get 10,000 because other than when I'm training, I'm standing or sitting at this desk or laying down with my computer. So 10,000. Yeah. You know, I was going to say that's because we're American though, and we work at home. I have a guy I Skype with who lives in Sweden that's like close to 20,000, just day-to-day things. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. If you live in a big city where there's sometimes no transportation, 10K is like whatever, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Jeffrey, you touched on that you're doing not so much walking but recumbent bike. What's it been like the last year? The mode and the amount?
I started out pretty conservative when I started prepping.
Okay.
So I don't even think I started with cardio.
Okay.
And I would say probably out of the last few preps, this is the least amount of cardio I've done. I've had to ramp it up here lately because I'm like a little bit pressed for time, as far as my timeline. But prior to that, because in the past it would be like 5-6 days a week, 45 minutes to an hour.
Right.
But now, and you know, I've been at the desk for a while, so that really isn't a ton of cardio when you think about it. Like Berto said, we're sitting here all day doing nothing. So, but yeah, the last month I've probably been going about 5 days a week on my recumbent bike, about an hour, same pace. It's real casual, nothing super fast or anything like that.
Right.
So I mean, I sit at a desk all day, so I have to move, and I purposely kind of increase my activity levels outside of, you know, prep protocols, so like doing more house stuff, like house projects and painting and all that kind of stuff, and that definitely expedited things along. And the good thing about it is that it was like I don't eat a lot of food, so if I'm like, okay, if I need more fat loss, I'm not going to lower my calories down further. I'm going to become a sloth if I do that. Training's probably going to suck. So I'm like, I'd rather move more, keep my food where it's at, or even possibly increase food than, you know, drop my calories way down. Like it's, I guess what frustrates me a little bit when I see people out there as far as like social media land, people will like glamorize no cardio, you know, hey, I just prep, I didn't do no cardio or whatever. I mean, if I did that, then I basically probably would hardly lose any weight, or my calories would be so uber low, my training's gonna suck.
Yeah.
So I think it's very individual to people, and I think people just don't get caught up into the glamorization of people's protocols.
Yeah, there's really weird badges of honor. Like I don't know what I was looking at that some coach coach is. It's probably more than one. Like, someone celebrated being in the 300 carb club, like as a female, and I'm like, is this is a club? Like,
that's the wrong kind of goals.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it was like a badge of like eating food is a badge of honor, not doing cardio is a badge of honor.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's some weird shit that people glorify or brag about that aren't necessarily things that should be measured in that way, right? Because they're tools, like you said. It's like being like, I have squats in my program, I should get a gold star. It's like, whatever.
Yeah, I did experiment a little bit with this prep. Like, okay, let me see if I can do a lot less cardio than I have in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't successful. Like the rate of loss was just so slow for me.
No.
And I noticed my training wasn't that great, and I wasn't eating a lot of food. Like I had increased my fats higher than normal, drop my carbs down, see if the different like macro distributions would be more effective, and it just was not very effective at all. So I spent a good probably month experimenting, and it was frustrating. But I definitely learned more about myself. What tools don't work for me.
And neither of you guys do cardio in the off season, correct?
No, outside of just activity, like hiking.
But like recreationally once or twice a week, right?
No, but it's not a standard thing, not at all.
No. Does walking downstairs count?
Maybe.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
No.
And not even like corporate stairs, like Jeff's house stairs.
Yeah. And he only walks downstairs. He says he doesn't. Someone carries him back up.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the little
I walk
seat by the stairs
to the kitchen.
that
I
motorized.
carry a big plate of food back to my office. Yeah.
The one isometric curl you do per day.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bert, as far as nutrition, okay, so your starting stage weight is like 165-ish, 3-ish, 7-ish, mid 160s.
Shoot, I don't even know this year. I've been weighing in like at 160, 161, and I'm not in shape yet. So,
what was your last stage weight? I'm crazy then.
Yeah, you know what? It was also a different scale, and different scale. And then one thing that actually happens with certain scales, they're like hypersensitive to what kind of floor you're using, like and how like even it is.
Okay.
So this is a brand new scale, but yeah, last time I think I did a show at 164.
Right. Okay.
But it was also, I had never fluctuated like that. Like last prep, I was like all over the place with I was like very taken back, but then it just reminded me like, wow, some people deal with this shit all the time. Like the scale just like does this and that, you know? So last year, yeah, I was in the mid 160s. Right now I'm like in the low 160s, and I'll probably be, come September, I'll see a few weigh-ins under 160. So, I mean, where I end up, I don't know, but I look bigger, so I can't really. I don't know. I don't.
It's all visuals, man. That's all.
Yeah, no, I look way more dense than I ever recall looking.
Cool. Yeah. What was your starting weight in January? Would be just to know, and then when you actually started creating a big deficit.
I think I was like 175 by the time I started my diet. I was closer to 180 than 175. And lost, like I got down to the low 170s within like 2-3 weeks, and then took the month off. It's been a total, I think, in terms of like weight loss, I've lost about 12-13 pounds.
Okay, but that's the lightest you've ever started a prep, right?
No, last time was lighter. Last time was I think I started the prep at like maybe not significantly lighter, but this prep, that was one thing I was recalling. I'm like, wow, you know, the plan is to always start the preps a little bit tighter. But this time I was heavier, but I didn't feel necessarily like fluffier. all that fluffier. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's probably just like the fact that I got a new scale because the other one died out on me. I'd be curious to get that other scale back somehow. And But I don't think they make
And the
it
same
anymore.
floor, if they could shift the floor to you from your
I need to go back to Eric's old house and ask our friend Ed, who lives there now, can I use your
yeah.
bathroom? This is very important.
The 3DMJ house. Yeah,
I
so
need
for
to
the
know
listeners, Eric and Barb owned a house, and then they moved to New Zealand, and Berta lived in it. You rented from Eric, right?
Yeah.
And then one
yeah.
of Eric's clients just bought it in the last year, and he and his new wife live here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe one of our children at some point will go live there. Okay. Yeah, I'll give you a break. Jeff, what about you? What's starting body weight this time, and estimated stage weight or previous stage weight? Either or.
203 back in June of 2016.
Okay.
And at the moment, 178-ish.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly where I'll be this time. I was 170 last time, 2014. I was 170 in 2011. So I'm assuming I'm going to be 170 again.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping it's better because basically 2011 and 2014, same weight, but I looked a little, like Berto would say, a little denser and a little bit better, more refined. So hopefully this same thing around, like this 170 will look better than the last 170.
Right. What was your first stage weight, Jeff?
In the 150s, like mid 150s maybe. And it was bad. It's terrible, yeah. But yeah, mid 150s.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I've seen it
So
in
in
the
30
150s.
years,
It was very good.
your stage weight's gone up.
That's probably not let's not compare that because that first show is probably, gosh, still fat and lost a lot of muscle mass. I would say probably more like 2002 was like the year I really kind of got pretty shredded. I actually had shredded glutes in 2002. I was 160.
That's awesome.
And then in 2006, I was 156 with pretty shredded too. So yeah, I would say that's 14 pounds.
That's so huge. For the listeners especially, and like people in their first 5-6 years of competing that always refer to their last stage weight, and when they're not, they're approaching this season 5 years later and they're upset that they still are 5 pounds away from their last stage weight, and it's like, maybe you're not supposed to be. It'd be good if you weren't. What about you, Bert?
Let's see. First show is pretty funny. It was 180 at the peak of that season, right? Yeah. So I looked
your
similar
first
to how
real
I started.
stage weight. They actually you got on stage and that was the best you had.
Historically, as soon as I get into the high 150s, that's where things look their best. So 2008, that's exactly when I went from hey, you look pretty good to wow, not many people look this way. And then 2008, that was the case. 2011, about the same. 2014, I was a little bit heavier. But like I said, that was just a very weird year in terms of fluctuations, to be honest. And it might have been I was just because I was powerlifting, I was taking ibuprofen all the time.
Just
because that's what powerlifters do. Yeah. So, So I think the stage weight honestly is going to be probably somewhere in the mid 150s, so very similar to my 2008. But I look at that physique and I'm like, wow, that was. You got a pro card, dude? Really? Who gave you that? They should have taken that back.
Okay. Good talk. I didn't think about all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't think using the scale is a good barometer for your improvements going from season to season as far as what you look like on stage.
Yeah.
Especially,
we ask our on our application, what was your last stage weight?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that that's the goal this time necessarily.
If you've been training a good while, then it's not scale weight's not going to really tell you a whole lot.
Yeah. Okay. The nutrition. I feel like this one will take a while.
I don't think so. Watch us run through this. We love talking about food right now, Andrea. You can talk about it all day. Tell you my favorite recipe.
Go. That pizza. That string cheese pizza, though. Okay, how'd you start, Bert? Because I know neither of you guys actually track in the off season, track your food. I mean, not that you don't know estimations in your brain if you had to write them on paper, but in general, you guys just kind of eat by feel.
Yeah.
But when you started, what did it look like, Berto, compared to your off-season estimation?
I went to numbers that traditionally would start fat loss or aim for them. But it was very backwards and it was very relaxed. Like I would track my food, I would weigh my food. Sometimes at the end of the day, I would put it all in, and I'm like, oh, this is where you're at. You've had enough. So I was very loose with my numbers initially. I kind of knew where I needed to be to create fat loss for these 5 days in the week where I'm going to lose fat. And then I would have 2 days that consisted of an adequate amount of carbohydrates that I felt would give me the effects that I want. I wanted to fill out. I wanted to have enough stored energy for the training week. And then obviously mitigate all the hormonal havoc that does happen over the course of a contest prep.
Okay, can I interrupt you real quick? For the listeners,
Yeah.
a few things to keep in mind. These guys have done this for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Also, keep in mind that if we don't recommend this is not a recommendation, either of anything that they've said this episode, but especially what they're going to say coming up here. Not a recommendation. Nothing we do with our athletes generally, unless we've been working with them for many, many years and we know a whole lot about them. I think that's a good disclaimer. Is that good enough?
Yeah,
don't do what we're about to say.
I was saying, just remember that we're talking about our own personal journeys, right. And it's not always going to relate to someone else's. But
what's real important about y'all's journeys is your high level pros have been doing this for a couple decades at least. I think that's the most important part of y'all's journey, and you know yourselves very, very well. Okay, continue, Bert. So those numbers, what do those look like specifically for you?
Specifically, I'd say I would try to keep my fat under 50, carbohydrates closer to 300 than 400 on my low days. And then protein, I was pretty loose with that one as well. I was trying to get 4 to 5 protein feedings a day, and protein would end up at about body weight or a little bit beyond that, but not too much above that. Yeah. So, and then the refeeds, I was actually a little bit more on point with those because I'm handling more calories, and you don't want to go overboard with that either and slow down the progress that you want to make after the refeed. So with those, I was just trying to hit about 500 to 600 grams of carbohydrate, keep fat below 60, because sometimes it can be hard to do that with that many carbohydrates. And then honestly, a gram per pound of protein, sometimes a little bit less on those days, since I have other substrates in the system that on that day it can help with the risk of losing muscle. So, and especially early on in the prep. So
you started with 5 and 2? 5 low days, 2
5
highs.
5 and 2 is what I started.
Okay.
And then we did it that way, and quite often it's pretty hilarious. I look at my phone and I'm like, yeah, I think you've had enough. Given today's physical activity, whether you trained or not, how you're looking. I know what a good deficit should feel like relative to where I am in that fat loss phase. So if I was feeling the way I feel now, sometimes 10 pounds ago, that is not right. That's not appropriate for that time in the prep. But now, I know just how shitty I should feel, and no, you don't need a refeed because you're flat. This is very appropriate actually. So. Yeah. Now we've actually buckled down a lot more, and macros are set, and I'm trying to hit those every single day.
Okay. We'll switch. Okay, so Jeff, what about your starting nutrition plan compared to or actually, hold on, Bert, what do you eat approximately off season? Just how big of with the numbers you gave us, how big of a deficit that is in general compared to your normal feedings before you start?
So what I've learned over the years is that if I put more food in there, my body's good at resisting weight gain. So I can maintain weight relatively the same on 3,800 calories to 4,300 calories, but I'll just stay on the lower end. So off season, it was just have 4 meals and don't go over 1K,
per meal
in each meal. Yeah. And that's basically off season.
Okay, word. Okay, now Jeff, off season versus your starting of prep macro. Do you have all this in your computer right now, by the way? Is that what you're looking at?
Me?
Yeah.
I do have my spreadsheet.
I love it.
But I don't have it before December, though. So
okay.
I have it, but I would have to dig it up. I don't want to do all that right now.
Estimations, because I'm sure you probably even know in your brain.
So yeah, obviously, like I said, I don't track. So if I had to estimate, it's neighborhood of 3,000 calories, which is more food than I definitely need. So that's why I get over 200 pounds. But yeah, I would started like Berto 5 and 2, so 5 lows, 2 highs. The calories, I can't recall calories, like just the ranges of macros was like 40 to 50 fats, 250 to 300 carbs, about 180-ish on the protein.
Okay.
Those were the lows. The refeeds are auto-regulated, basically. So depending on how I was looking, how flat I was, where my energy levels were at, how my training was doing, and also took social things into consideration early on, so any social functions. So I would just auto-regulate the size of the refeeds based on all that. So if I was feeling pretty good, training's going well, don't feel hungry, whatever, then I'm not going to go crazy, keeping pretty moderate, like 400 grams of carbs. Some of the refeeds, I would take it up to 600 if I felt run down, flat, feeling like shit, and I just bump them up. And of course, gauge the amount of progress too. So if I'm not progressing too well, then of course I'm not going to have these massive refeeds. But it was loose early on, though. It was a lot looser. But last couple of months I've like really tightened things down. So the refeeds are definitely a lot more tame here recently. So probably averaging about 400 to 500 grams of carbs on my refeeds.
Okay.
And I auto-regulate the setup. So now it's like where I feel like I need to push a little bit more, I'll go, okay, let's go 6 low, 1 high. If I feel like I'm getting some good progress during the week and Saturday rolls around, okay, I go ahead and take 2 refeeds this weekend. Okay. So just basically auto-regulating the refeeds based on all those variables.
Let's go ahead and keep going with, you said how you started and you said, well, now I do these things. What happened in the middle? Was it always just kind of like a gradual?
Yeah, for the most part, it's been, well, for the early stages of the prep, from June 2016 to the end of 2016, it was 5 and 2s, but there was also the months where it was more maintenance.
Okay.
So I'd actually bring the low days up a bit more. Like I was increasing the calories like another 100, 150, 200 calories each day.
Okay.
During the week. Yeah. Just to kind of maintain body weight more so. But then once January kind of rolled around, that's when I kind of started to get more regimented with the 5 and 2s and getting a little bit more tight with the auto regulation as far as the refeeds, like tightening things down a little bit more on the weekends, and then more cardio. So I started doing more cardio starting in January too.
So your food doesn't drop
My food
much throughout the year.
Relatively the same the entire time. Like I started out probably, like I told you, those macros haven't changed. The only thing that's kind of lower down now is my carbs. Like right now I'm averaging 200 to 225 on the low days.
And it used to be like, you said
250 to 300 in the early stages. So the food level hasn't really changed a whole lot. My activity levels more so is what's dictated the rate of progress.
And not that your weight training's changed, but that's like the NEAT and the recumbent bike.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So the only thing I focused on, like in the past, would be like more on I focus a lot on nutrition. Mm-hmm. This time around, like, let me just keep that shit more the same, and let me just focus on activity level. Let that be the driver.
Okay.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I feel more normal, like as far as just the way I'm functioning as a human, like
not as foggy.
Yeah, it's like the way I'm interacting with people. It doesn't feel like a prep. It's just like, oh, okay, if I need more progress, okay, let me just go paint something, or let me go mow the lawn, or you know what I mean? It's not like, oh shit, okay, I gotta drop my carbs down to 100 here for a week and feel like fucking shit, feel like death. No, I'd rather go out there. I'd rather go, hey, shit, let me go walk. Let me go do 20,000 steps as opposed to lower my... for me, personally, it's more pleasant. It's easier to do that.
Right. And not that you do that with all your athletes. It's just what's working for you right now. Yeah.
It's just me.
Yeah. Okay. Bert, you told us what you start at. What are you about right now nutritionally? What are you doing?
Actually, I want to go check it out. Numbers that I try to hit, it's 40 fat on both days, 350 carb on low, 500 on high, and then proteins 200 on low, 180 on high days. So,
okay. And how many days? You're not 5 and 2 anymore. You're like 3 and 4. What are you at right now?
yeah, there's 3 days at a maintenance, at assumed to be maintenance or enough food, I guess, and then yeah, the rest of the time in the week is spent dieting. So 3 and 4, 3 high, 3 low.
And just to be sure, that means that both of y'all have your body weight very elevated some parts of the week and very low some parts of the week, correct?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, and I honestly I kind of want to see that because that is what I'm going to chew through during the week, and it's weight, but it's not fat. It's all stuff that's stored in those muscles.
Yeah.
And as the week goes on, like you're still going to be going through fat because your body, especially if you weight train, is going to be very hesitant to just like let go of glycogen for no reason. It doesn't work that way, right? So yeah, I think that's the one thing with the refeeds is that especially if you do multi-days, you will see some weight gain. But I think one trend that I have noticed that kind of counters that is that it's like clockwork after that. Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with the carbs being present a bit longer than the way they would be in previous preps, which makes the water retention like peace out.
Yeah. It's funny, as a coach, it's like we get happy when it's like the athlete, when they hit a new low the day before refeed, they're like, but can we keep going? I'm like, no, this is exactly what we want. Like, you want to see a big low right before you feed again. And almost every time if someone checks in mid-prep and they just hit a low and they're about to refeed, they're like, but can we see what happens in 3 more days? Or, try to extend that.
Like, usually what happens for me, I hit a new low. Yeah, it's exciting because you're like, okay, I touched new territory. It means it is working, but it's also, for me, it means like when I look in the mirror, I look like shit. It's usually the worst I look. It's like because you're at that stage, you just dug a hole. You're gonna look flat, for the most part. Yeah. So it's usually like, okay, after a good size 1 to 2 refeeds, the scale's up, but you look better. Yeah. Like if the fill back out, you look better, you're more energetic. I'm ready to go again, ready to dig again.
Right.
So a lot of times when people hit a new low, they get so excited, like, oh, okay, it's progress. I want to keep that going. But now you continue on, you keep dropping. You're digging an even further hole, and you can make matters really, really worse. Get in a tailspin. Like now all of a sudden your training could be affected.
Yeah.
Stress levels get elevated. etc. And not just to mention, like, it's work and just home life and all that gets even harder to function.
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, it's like I hit a new low, good, but look terrible. Okay, we need to get some refeeds eventually in here so I can rinse and repeat the same process over again.
Yeah. And like you talked about, not only empty, it's likely that at some point, if we just never have them, start eating away at some of your hard-earned muscle, and then not only that, you're not training as hard, so you're not stimulating them the same way either. So it's just a cluster.
That's like I told you earlier that those photo shoots with Brandon was on the 6th low day.
Which you don't always even take a 6th low day.
And the one prior to the Worlds, that was my lowest weigh-in of the prep. I was like 168 pounds or whatever. But I didn't look. I was like frustrated, like shit. I looked far better a week later after taking in a bunch of carbs.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I got my point across.
It's a good point. It was a great point to get across. Okay, I think you're right. That wasn't too long. One other thing, I'm trying to think of what people would love to hear as insight about you guys and your prep. Not that it's strewn about across multiple videos on the YouTube channel, but here it's just like the rundown of. Let's go over prep week real quick. Plans, estimated. I know it's not there yet for either of y'all, but I think we can end with that. Bert, do you want to start with what you're going to do this time and why it might be different than a previous attempt?
I think I'm gonna backload because I need that extra week of dieting. So I'll probably, and I have a good sense at this point. And my best peak weeks last time were backloads, ironically enough, which I was trying to save up the big front load for the big one, but it didn't work out the way I wanted to. Um, but um, but yeah, the peak week, I'm probably gonna either what seems to be most likely, I'm probably gonna find a formidable sushi restaurant in Kansas, which will be very difficult to find. Right.
All the California rolls from the grocery store.
Talk about landlocked, right? Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to look like. Extra cream cheese on that, sir. It's fresh. So I'll probably do something like that, like go out and have like either something with a good amount of carbs, lower on fat, but just kind of take it as like my first day in a refeed cycle. But definitely make it a little bit less, I guess, stressing. I think something about going out and putting your feet up for a minute, me personally, just puts me in the right frame of mind. I don't think that would work for the majority of athletes, and I will not be doing that when I'm like in my best shape. But if it works really well, I might just do that because I seem to peak really well when I focus on that aspect too. What would you like to do with your Friday night? Because otherwise you're just sitting here waiting, thinking about peaking, which you shouldn't be doing. So yeah, it's going to be pretty lax. It's going to be a backload, and it's going to be pretty modest. I'm going to try not to eat too much the morning of the show, simply because we are up there at 9. I'd rather sleep in and get most of my food the day previous. And maybe just have a light breakfast and then my pre-stage meal, and let's go up there and see what we have.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to drive my buddy Brian Miner. He's rooming with me for that show. I was going to drive him insane. He's going to be like, dude, like, because he's a little bit more meticulous than I. So he'll probably have it all laid out, and I guess I'll bring my sushi over.
Is he competing at the same show? Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, what if he doesn't want sushi? What are you going to do?
Well, he can stay home and have rice cakes. That's absolutely. I'll take his wife and his kid out to get sushi. So there we go.
What about you, Jeff? What's the plan you're thinking?
Backload. But I think what I've been noticing with my refeeds is that, because what I do is take 2 refeeds, I look better on Tuesday. So Saturday, Sunday, I have my refeeds. Tuesday. Monday, I look a little okay. I look a little watery. Tuesday, I get tight. After a low day, I look pretty tight. So I'm like, okay, let me try to practice run this for this guest posing. Maybe just 1 refeed because I still need to lean down. I don't want to waste too many days.
Yeah.
So I'll probably just maybe like on Thursday have a refeed, Friday a normal day, and then Saturday I'm gonna try to duplicate what I look like during most days during the week. Like I usually look my best in the late afternoons after I've had about 3 good meals in me. So I'll just make sure that I get 3 good meals in, my normal meals prior to stepping on stage. And I do think I have like a 2 o'clock stage time.
Okay.
So just get 3 same meals in there by 3. Make sure, I have a good pump. And as far as the variables like food source and sodium, and I'm keeping shit exactly the same as I always do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to fucking play around with all those variables or anything like that. Because I know what I look like for the most part, day in and day out. It's pretty predictable. And I don't really, for the most part, my food sources stay roughly the same all the time. If you guys go on my Instagram story, I'm eating sandwiches and chips every day at lunch. So it's like it's the same thing.
You and Brandon.
So as long as I don't do a screw around with anything, keep fiber intake roughly the same, don't go crazy on fiber the day before, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
So then I'll just take notes on it, and we'll go from there. So if it turns out well, great. I have a decent formula for the next shows. If not, but I do use a lot of history, like in 2014, Berto handled my peak for the international. It was actually a front load, and it worked awesome. Like it worked extremely well. And I think what was key with that is too, I kept my stress levels way down. Like Berto mentioned, like the night before, I was hanging with my brother in the hotel room. We're watching NFL Network. Like I was not thinking about the show at all. We were just sitting there, just talking about football and just enjoying the time. And then, basically Saturday, I got up early enough to get some good food in there and make sure I was hydrated. It worked out well. So just a couple different things that have worked well. So there's not like one set game plan. I'm gonna like, okay, this is the way to peak for me all the time. It's just gonna depend on where I'm at too. Eventually, probably like down the line, where I'm at with everything.
Yeah, like when travel is, when you arrive at
That
the
makes a
hotel.
huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like when you have those early start times, like Berto was talking about, it's like that can be pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Try to peak that early. So
I get so like sometimes too, like if it's a late show, they'll tan you in the morning, so you have to get up extra early, and you're all freaked out. Like I had a one show one time, and everything was on one day, so you'd get up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I got tanned like an hour before my stage, and I was just freaking out. Anyways, because girls and makeup and hair, you know what I mean?
That is true. Yeah. That is. I'm getting my hair braided on Friday though.
No!
So that'll be part of the the relaxing.
It feels
right,
good, dude.
yeah.
It feels good. That's why I'm
Yeah.
playing with hair.
Just sit there and get
Okay.
served. Yeah.
All right. Are you going to shave it? No, just braids all the way back?
All the way. Yeah. Just like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll look on the Instagram for that.
I'm gonna braid mine too.
The first ever braid wig, the cornrow wig.
He's gonna just braid doll hair and just glue it in strips. Anything else, you guys? What's been significant about your prep this time?
Here's a big one.
All right, I'm ready.
But without completely exiting that one, I think one thing that I think is just super key, the peak week, and especially Friday night, and it's just like, and the day of the show, it's just like learning like to chill like out. Like you need to be like Ellis McLean, like as he approaches his squat. That's literally, you need to come in smiling to the platform and like, oh, we'll see what happens. All I can tell you is I'm gonna give it my best, and I've given it my best up until this point. And if you just remind yourself of that, like you'll be in a much more cool place. Biggest challenge this prep has been, I guess, being a professional and then having to diet. I think it's very easy to diet when you're just like chilling, like the way it was in the past. There's been significant travel and just like,
oh, okay. I didn't know what you meant by that. Got it.
Yeah. So I think that's been the hardest part, is like almost the whole month of July I was not at home, and I hardly was able to track as precisely as I wanted. Like
or train the way you want.
Yeah, and we were filming until like 2 a.m. sometimes when I was in Toronto, and that was, I have to take that into account. It's like, this is like the take that's gonna go on like all these programs, and like I need to sound like I'm not dieting and be clear and have energy. So yeah, just being it was way easier back in 2008 when I look back. It's like, hey, you had school, you had work, you had to be at these places at these times, and somewhere in between there, like you eat and train. So that's been probably the biggest thing. And it wasn't perfect. It has not been perfect, but I'm getting better. And I think at this point, I need to develop that skill in order to continue doing what I'm doing, but then also fulfill like my desires as an athlete.
Okay. So when you said be a professional, you meant like a traveling person with work obligations all over the damn world.
Yeah, I mean, like being at the San Jose Fit Expo and like saying hi to everyone, making sure everyone has a great experience when they come and talk to you, like that's something that you're not always in the mood to do when you're prepping, you know?
Yeah, people are hard when you're prepping.
Yeah. So I think that's been, and it's made me better at the like local things that they also tend to slip when you're prepping, because that stuff is way harder. And it could have been the other way around, where like, you know, these are the people like my girlfriend and my mom, they live with me, so they have to put up with me, you know, but it hasn't been that way. I think if anything, it has just made me a more conscious dieter. I think that's super important to develop, because if you want to do this for a long time, like you want to look forward to your preps and know that, yeah, it will be difficult, but you've developed the skills to cope.
Yeah. And for the listeners, just so y'all know, I would never do that much traveling if I was prepping. But that is a choice Berto made.
Yeah.
Which
That's a big part. That's a big thing too, is just kind of knowing, okay, this is what I can do.
That would ruin me if I did that shit. So, cool. What about you, Jeff? Anything in particular that stands out about this prep?
Challenge-wise, I think the big challenge has just been the training aspect, trying to train through aches and pains.
Yeah.
That's been the biggest challenge. But I definitely learned a lot. Like I said, the last couple of months, I think I figured it out anyway, that basically how to kind of keep everything in check. And realize at the same time that, yeah, okay, maybe I'm not like super intense, or I'm not putting out as much volume as I used to or whatever, but nothing's going anywhere. I'm not regressing because I'm ensuring that the quality is there. My training is like try to make it as efficient as possible. So it's kind of a nice reinforcement for me moving forward that, it's not always about more and more and more, not to let the insecurity and the fear of not progressing get the best of me. So that's been enlightening. So still learning as I go. But I think what's been really good about this prep is dealing with prep and bodybuilding and family. Like I would say this is the best I've done of like not having to interfere with family life. Mm-hmm. It's not perfect, but it's definitely better than it was in 2014. And I did a pretty good job in 2014. That was my first go around with a family.
Yeah.
But definitely improved this time around. So I think that's something that's like, it doesn't even feel like prep, to be honest. It doesn't even feel like a prep this time around.
When do you think it will?
Hoping it doesn't.
But if so, like the last couple weeks maybe.
I think like the last couple weeks, it's like starting to feel a little bit more because my hunger levels are starting to get up there. Yeah. But I'm aware of it. So like was it yesterday? Yesterday or the day before. I just remember I was super grumpy. I didn't take it out on them, but I told my wife, I said, babe, I'm super tired, I'm super hungry, and I'm grumpy. And she's like, okay.
Noted.
And so she knows. Yeah. And I was aware of it, so I didn't go around treating her, I didn't take it out on her or anything. I just just talked about it. Yeah. So that's something that I wouldn't have done a few years back. It would just been like, I'm fucking grumpy, I'm irritable, and I'm gonna just be irritable and grumpy.
Yeah.
And people can see that, but I'm like really trying to be aware of it and not have those behaviors come out. So that to me is like one of the goals when I started was like, okay, let's try to do this where it doesn't feel like a prep, it's more lifestyle.
Yeah. And
I think that's why I don't know if I've mentioned this to you guys, but I said, you know what, if I didn't compete this year, it wouldn't be a big deal. I'll just keep the prep going. I'll compete in the spring because it just feels like it's just part of life. It's not a stressor.
Feels normal.
Feels normal, yeah.
Do you think it's something that in a year from now you'll be like, oh shit, that wasn't normal? Like, you know how sometimes when you're fed, you don't realize that you were being underfed? What happens to me?
I think I haven't, like, don't forget, I still have 7-8 pounds to lose. So
it'll get hard, yeah.
It's going to get a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And when you do reach those levels of leanness, you're not going to feel normal. So I know that's around the corner, but I'm aware of it. I have experience behind me, so I know it's coming. So I'm ready for it. Good. The big challenge for me will be after the prep's over, because I have a history of gaining weight fast because I let the behaviors that I'm dealing with, that I have now, the good ones, like during prep, the good ones, they go away once the season's over. So I need to really dimmer switch. I always talk about the dimmer switch. It's going to be pretty high, at the end of prep. I need to turn it down, not all the way down, not off, but turn it down. Yeah. Still kind of keep adherence and sustainability there. So that's going to be the biggest challenge for me. Not the prep itself, but the transition and back into the off season. That's going to, because I do want to compete more frequently now because I am older. I don't want to take another 3-year off season.
Okay.
I probably could technically if I really wanted to. I think I could make it happen, but I'd rather like maybe every other year or something like that.
When you say the behaviors, is that almost always associated with nutrition or just in general?
How I cope with stress is a big one because I'm an emotional eater. So the way I deal with stress, basically, that's the big one. So if I handle life stress, bodybuilding stress, whatever, if I handle that well and don't get too worked up, then I'm not going to turn to food as much.
Okay.
And the thing that keeps me from going off the wires, because I am prepping, that's kind of like, that keeps me handcuffed.
Okay.
So it's like once that's gone, okay, now I need to, what's going to keep me from going off the rails? And it's like, okay, I need to have that awareness.
Okay. Interesting. Good to know. Bert, what's the hardest part of prep for you?
Shit, so much.
He's like,
So
no,
many
it's
things
real
are hard.
easy.
I wouldn't even know where to start, to be honest.
Okay.
But I guess one thing, and this is kind of what we both mentioned in our own ways, is that there's certain aspects of your life that are just not going to change. Like, and instead of trying to make those things fit your bodybuilding, it should probably be the other way around, or at least very 50-50. I think for me, the hardest part of this prep was definitely doing everything else that we do when I'm not at home.
Yeah.
And then I'd say probably the social life. The social life has definitely taken a hit. And I think it's now just I pick my spots more than anything. So we have a dinner tomorrow with friends. It's been a few weeks since I've had dinner with this group of friends. But it's just like I can't fit that in, and I can't fit that in. I choose not to fit that in, and I think a lot of people would say it's like, oh, you're being a hermit bodybuilder. But no, I'm still being very good to my friends. It's just like when we go out and do those specific things, it's like, you know what, I'll wait for the next one or the one after, and it's no different than like for a college student who's getting into a very intensive part of their degree. It's like they're not out partying on Friday night, or they shouldn't be anyways, So. And I kind of like it. It's been I think in the past I might have forced myself to do a little bit more of those things than I would have liked, just to keep things chill and peaceful and keep those aspects of my life. But they're still a part of me, and when I'm done with this, like they'll all be back. So I'll get to enjoy this beer town. And that's the next thing I'm saving my. I got that dinner, and then there's Tour de Fat over here, which is Tour de Fat is like a Tour de France that involves beer.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If I hit a certain look by then, I will allow myself to have one or maybe two beers if there's two really good beers I want. But yeah. So that's probably been the hardest part. It's the being a professional, and then the after hours. That's definitely changed, and I miss it. But I also am completely in love with what I'm doing right now.
Cool. I think we talked about preps. Anything you think the people want to know? No, they can check out your vlogs if they want more information specifically with numbers, with training footage on our YouTube channel. And thank you guys for being so honest and open about all the shit y'all do. It inspires everybody's.
Hey, thank you. We appreciate you guys, and I do appreciate all the support that we do get as a team, and especially Jeff and I get when we are prepping. That definitely helps, and that is one thing that I do think we have going for us, is that there's people like cheering us on. That helps immensely.
All right, I'll choreograph a cheer for y'all. I'll do it. We'll Instagram it later. All right, talk to you soon. See ya. Hi, 3DMJers. Just wanted to remind everyone to head over to 3dmusclejourney.com and sign up for our Big 3 newsletter. We call it this because, in case you haven't noticed, our team comes up with 3 new pieces of content every week in the form of 2 articles and 1 podcast episode. Rather than remembering to check back with us 3 times a week, we can send it all to you in one single email every Thursday. This weekly digest also includes direct links to any other content that Team 3DMJ coaches are a part of throughout the entirety of the internet. Whether that's guest appearances, interviews, seminars, or courses, you will not miss any of it. So if you like hearing about all the free resources that we have to offer, all the products we sell, all the projects we are a part of, and all the ways you can get discounts, reminders, and early access to them, head over to 3dmusclejourney.com right now and sign up.